All right, are we on? Hey, let's go. We're back. It's DNT. I'm Daryl, and this is Ty, my son. And
Woohoo!
I was going to give a big introduction again about us, but you'll just have to look at the first one of these shows to get that because Ty thinks it's too formal and corny to do a big introduction. So we're just going to go for it and talk about politics, a little bit about the NBA Finals. And we're going to start just following up on our last show with the California gubernatorial primary and how things ended up. What do you think about it, Ty?
Oh, it sucks. One would hope. It's whatever.
Why does it
You know what
suck?
I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, you can talk about it first. You know what I
Well,
think.
as far as I know, the last I checked, which was this morning, I think it's hard to get up to date stuff. But you had Hilton still leading with something like 28%. You had Becerra with 26 or 27%. And you had Steyer with around 20%. And that was with like maybe 60% of the vote counted, not even 60. I think it was 57% of the vote counted. So, I think I know why Ty is upset, and I would kind of agree with him on this. We know that Becerra is probably going to end up, when they count all the votes, will probably end up coming in first, but it's very likely that Hilton will be in second, and so we'll have a Becerra Hilton general election in November. And why does that upset you, Ty?
Yeah, no, that's definitely the case.
Yeah.
I am disappointed. Was disappointed in the whole election cycle, to be completely honest. I know they're just primaries, so it's not, the end of the world. But especially in California, I didn't, track results elsewhere. I know that progressives across the board didn't do great as far as I'm concerned, as far as I've seen, which is really unfortunate. But especially in California, Democrats in general did terribly. I mean, not even progressives. Hilton obviously, yeah, a lot of the votes that haven't been counted are mail-in ballots and stuff like that. So I assume that, Becerra will overtake Hilton for first. And Steyer will gain some on him, but I don't think at this point that he's going to be, the second person. I think it's definitely going to be Becerra and Hilton. Or at least that's what, the analysts say. And that's unfortunate. I really was hoping that we would have two Democrats at least for the general election. Obviously Steyer was my candidate. I think Becerra is a compromiser, but even then, he's better than Hilton. He's better than a Republican, and I really would have hoped that in California, especially with a terrible, I mean, like, Trump's approval rating is shit. Like, you would think that people would vote. I mean, we were talking about this with high gas prices, with shitty economy. Like, Republicans would get wiped out in the midterms.
Well,
It's like the opposite.
well, because it's just they want change, and whoever has been in power is just anti sort of incumbent, and so the Democratic Party has been sort of the incumbent party in California, so they've lost some votes probably for that. But again, I think it's too early to make a hard conclusion about that because they haven't counted all the votes, and the Democratic ticket was all split. You add probably most, surely not all, because some of the people voting for Steyer won't vote for Becerra because they're more independent minded, rejecting the status quo voters. But he's going to get a good chunk of those. So it would be very unlikely that Hilton will win the general election anyway.
Yeah, of course.
But it is disconcerting a little bit that you want more energy than that. And yeah, and like you, as we discussed last time, I ultimately voted for Steyer because I wanted a little more, energy than
Mm,
the standard Becerra. But I'm okay with
more
Becerra.
gumption,
I
man.
exactly. And
More
I wanted
gumption.
more sort
Get
of a
in there.
national
Make some
presence.
promises,
Right.
man. Try to deliver, man.
Exactly. And also I would have liked to have seen two Democrats in the general election, so we wouldn't have to keep hearing Hilton and the usual cut taxes, cut regulation. The same. I mean,
The Democrats are doing a
he talks
terrible
about
job.
what?
The Democrats have been doing a terrible job in this country,
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
state. I just really hate the way the Democrats have handled
Right.
it.
It hasn't been working. Well, we've also tried cutting taxes and cutting regulations, and that doesn't work either. If you
I
want
know.
pollution, that's why we made the regulations in the first place. You want consumer protection. You want clean air. You want clean water. You want, you want houses that don't fall apart. This is why we have these regulations. People have very short memories, but I haven't forgotten. That's why we put these things in the first place. So anyway, I think the overall picture will be better than it looks right now. But yeah, it could have been better, and we'll see how things go nationally. Because look, you've got these Trump primary endorsements in other states, and yeah, so they win their primaries. Will they win the general elections? In most of the red states, they probably will, but it's the toss-up states that matter, right? The the ones that are in play, those are the ones that matter, and we'll see if they can win those states. And even in some like Texas, where theoretically that should be pretty darn red, and yet
Hey, it's getting more purple, man.
when you
It's all those people running away from
yes,
California.
right. But when you got a guy like Paxton, who's like the bottom of the barrel, I mean, hopefully the voters there, won't vote that guy in, because that's really like the nadir of American politics.
Yeah, I know. Have you seen Tallarico?
Yeah, yeah, but mostly what I see about him, because I haven't had the time to research him in particular very closely and look at his past record and so forth, is just Republican talking points against him. That's what most of the headlines I see are. And so until I have time to take a deep dive into what he's actually done and what he actually stands for, I couldn't say much about him, except anybody's better than Paxton because that guy, I mean, even his own party hates that guy, and knows he's corrupt, and
Yeah.
knows he has no character, no moral center. He's just an ambitious, guy who wants power and influence, and compensating for whatever his past life's failures are. I don't know, but he has no business being in politics unless you think politics is a cesspool for people like that. Yeah, hopefully he's not voting. But what do you know about Tallarico that you could tell me?
It might have been Talarco. I don't know. Someone can correct me on that.
I think
But
everybody says Tallarico.
Tallarico.
Right?
It might be, yeah, Tallarico.
Yeah.
No, I think he's really. I mean, ironically, he's like the exact kind of Democrat that I was like, negatively criticizing in California, because I don't think, I think California should be more progressive. But for like Texas, I think he's great. He's like a pastor, I believe.
Mhm.
Another one of these guys, like what's his name, Warnock in Georgia.
Yeah.
You know, and so he's got the pastor compassion. When he talks to you, he does these one-on-one talks. He has this really good Jubilee segment. And he talks to you face to face, and he tells you, hey, it's gonna be all right. We're gonna go fight for working people like you and me. And I think he's got a really good way with people in terms of his toning is really well centered, and he kind of hits that kind of middle of the road, like I'm with you kind of thing. And it's not so much like he's a working man or he's going to get his hands dirty or anything, but he seems actually very progressive
Well, of
when it
course,
comes to the
that's of
policies.
course that's what I'm hearing in the Republican talking points. He's not manly enough for them, right?
Yeah, of course.
So yeah,
But like,
yeah.
I think that at least, he hits the Christian thing, and
Mhm.
that's nice, and he seems like a good guy in the sense that he's very, very amicable. So I feel like that's refreshing for like a moderate Democratic candidate. He's not like a slime ball. He doesn't come off like some sleazy dude. Like, he seems very sincere, and that's
Well,
nice,
judging from some of his past statements that they're now attacking him for, it does sound like he was sincere and that he was, too honest about some things, or, not careful, in a political sense to moderate everything that he said. But again, I gotta start researching him more carefully now as we get into, the general election. But one other thing I was just on these primary elections was the L.A. mayor's
I was
race,
gonna mention that too.
because
Oh my
yeah,
god, that's
I know,
terrible.
yet another like just ridiculous Republican, no experience,
That guy's an
outsider,
idiot. Like,
celebrity
he looks like the
candidate.
Stay Puft
Yeah,
Marshmallow Man. He's like an idiot. Like, it's just like,
yeah,
okay, whatever, bro. Like, you're a doughboy.
right. I mean, again, I don't think he can win the general election, right? But we'll just have to deal with this guy until then, and maybe he'll get some capital for the next round of elections. But what's interesting, though, is that I think they're a little farther along in the vote count in LA for the mayor's race, but there's still a lot to go. And as they continue, the more progressive candidate is doing better,
Yeah,
and
she's catching up a little, right?
yeah, she is. So
Thank God. I hate
know,
Bass too.
I know, but,
Like,
right, right. I mean, so
anyone but Bass except for Bass. Like,
yeah. Well, so we'll see how that goes. Again, that might be another thing that's too early to tell. But anyway, so much for those elections. What else going on in politics today would you like to talk about? Oh, and by the way, for you sports fans out there, we are gonna talk a little bit about the NBA Finals before we sign off. But let's just
Here's
get
just the
politics
hey
out of the
sports
way.
fans, I
Yeah,
want to tell you about
yeah,
um and then insert some sports betting
that's
software, of
right.
course.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
want to
some
tell you about the guys who
advertising for some sort. No, because one of the things we pride ourselves on, and we wish the countries understand, is that just because you're liberal or progressive doesn't mean you can't like sports and the outdoors and boxing and I mean it drives me nuts that there's this stereotype of people on the left as somehow being again unmanly or whatever. Hey, we can be sensitive, we can care about other people, we got our soft side, but hey, we're guys, we like sports, we like whatever. And I don't see
it's just
why things get.
your hobbies ain't the thing that put the hair on your chest, you know what I'm saying?
I know
Like it
that's what
don't
it
matter
is.
if you
Yeah,
like Barbie or doll
yeah,
houses or whatever, like that's not the thing that's like makes you tough or resilient at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying? Like there are
exactly,
plenty of like guys who grow up hella girly, girls who grow up hella girly, who are tough as hell, tougher than I am,
exactly. Oh, oh,
and it's like they can get their doll houses and shit,
I happen to know because Ty's mother is one of the toughest people I know. I mean,
True
seriously
that.
tough, seriously
True
tough.
that. She's a
So
dog.
yeah, I mean, I think it's okay if I say this. Both of our kids, Ty and his younger brother, she gave birth to them without an epidural. Not, she said for the first one, for Ty, she wanted the experience of a more natural childbirth. Okay. But for the second one, all right, you've been there, done that. But no, she wouldn't do it for the second one either.
She's just doing it for the love of the
Yeah,
game, man. She's just doing it for the love of the game.
she's very tough. So yeah, so these ridiculous stereotypes, putting people in boxes. I mean, this is one of the things that we on the left we're a little more open minded and data based. We don't just have these preconceived notions or things handed down to us or told to us that we just believe without questioning. So anyway, all that to say, we're gonna talk a little sports later too.
Well, we do have preconceived notions.
Yeah.
We just think through them,
Well,
not
exactly. Yeah. Well, nobody's perfect,
Of course.
right? And so we all have our biases, our influences, and whatever that we're unaware of. But we do try to be aware of them, and we change sometimes too when we become aware of them and realize that we were ignorant or whatever. So yes, and it's an ongoing process. It never stops. It's a lifelong thing.
For some people.
Yeah, well, it's called growing. It's like Bob Dylan said, right? He not busy being born, busy dying. The minute you stop, think, you've got it all figured out and you're not changing, improving, growing, hey, you're pretty much on your way out, right?
That's funny. All I remember Bob Dylan for is it's hard. It's
It's
hard.
hard, yeah, hard. Yes. And we'll be talking about music in upcoming episodes too. Look at him. He's wearing his Beatles shirt, like his
Oh, there you
CCR
go.
one. Yes, the great Beatles.
Brainwashed
Yes.
by him.
I know. I told him. But hey, I mean, people like the Beatles. A lot of people do. They're good. Anyway,
Geriatric people.
yes. But other political things. What else might you want to talk about in the headlines? We've got.
Of course, you love Pulte, so we'll talk about that first, just so you can rant and rave.
He says that sarcastically. Well, he's being withdrawn, basically.
Yes.
Trump tried to, nominate this guy Pulte to be, an acting, director of national intelligence to replace Tulsi Gabbard. But of course, the guy has no experience, doesn't even have security clearance. He was the, head of the FHFA, the Federal Housing Finance Agency. And he wasn't even good at it. He was just using that.
But you just like attacked random enemies of Trump's.
Exactly.
Like he's going after people
accusing them of
mortgage fraud. Yeah.
None of which have gone through, basically, because they're
actually one of them did.
Well, no. Again, nobody has been successfully prosecuted on these things.
No, but the governor, who's her name? She stepped down because of the blowback from it.
Well, I don't know which one you're talking, but I know that what was it? Lisa Cook, the Fed governor, the Federal Reserve governor, Board of Governors. That one is not resolved. Adam Schiff, Letitia James. None of those are sticking.
Lisa Cook, didn't she step down though?
I don't know. Maybe now
she had a lawsuit against her. And I don't think the
Yeah.
lawsuit's been successful.
Right.
I think they might have dropped that, but she did step down.
Yeah.
I think because of the blowback from partially at least the mortgage fraud thing.
Yeah, it might have, but again, it's clearly politically motivated, harassment attacks, which continue. And so, but the nice thing is that even Republicans,
Adam Schiff, mortgage frauder.
They don't want this guy. It's obvious, he's not qualified. And we're talking, national intelligence, overseeing our intelligence,
Well, you hear why Trump even
institutions.
put him in there? He just
Well,
wants to gut the intelligence
well,
agency,
that too, or to
which
again,
is
or to
hilarious.
get his hands on more sensitive intel, to have a loyalist in charge of that
Yeah.
intelligence
So
information to
yes.
attack his enemies or use it for leverage, like he tried to do, with Ukraine, with using Zelensky to try to get at Biden. Right? This is how he operates. There's a clear pattern in Trump's behavior that's pretty obvious to anybody who's been following this guy. This is how he uses his lapdogs, his acolytes, and as just these loyalists to go and attack people. Well, fortunately, some in the Republican Party, still have a spine and still have a conscience, and they realize how dangerous this is to have an incompetent and an unqualified guy heading the National Intelligence Committee. I mean, this is like not this is serious stuff. There's a reason why we have you know our national intelligence apparatus, right?
Yeah.
I thought, if anything, I thought people on the right and conservatives, that was always like their
I know it's
biggest
their
thing.
thing.
So
Yeah.
liberals are soft on, they're too dovish. That we need intelligence, we need a strong military, we need to protect ourselves against our enemies. And then you put that guy in charge. I mean, it tells you where Trump is. He obviously doesn't care about those things. He has other priorities, namely himself and his
And
own agenda.
prosecuting
Yes,
his enemies at
prosecuting
home.
his enemies, so he has unlimited power to do whatever he wants. In other words, a king or a dictator, and so forth. So, but I think that guy's already been
Yeah.
withdrawn.
Well, I
Yeah,
don't think he's already been
yeah,
withdrawn, but I
well,
saw
yeah,
that.
yeah. And that's the thing about Trump. He never gives up, right?
I was gonna
And
say
I'll
he
give
doesn't
him
even
credit
keep
for
up.
that. Look, you know,
Modern day FDR,
yeah,
they say.
yes. As far as leadership goes, you do want leaders to be tenacious, right? And fight for what they think is right. The problem is when you have a leader who does that, who's not fighting for what's right, but for what serves his selfish, agenda and not the country. That's really problematic because you've got to fight the same way he fights. And unfortunately, his own party has not done that up to this point. And people on the other side of the aisle haven't done it enough either, or certainly not effectively.
Pathetic.
Yes, and so, but it's nice to see some Republicans actually standing up to him. So it looks like he's out. And this has happened in some other recent votes, right? The House, Republican-controlled House, just voted to fund Ukraine,
Yep.
and they're trying to defend themselves against Russian aggression and to put further sanctions on Russia. Again, that's nice to see. They're standing up to Trump in that way.
Yep. Very much.
Um, they
Very much so. Very much so.
Yeah, I don't want to dominate this. I mean, as you got comments on these things, please let me know. My hand is beginning to fall asleep holding this microphone, so all of my
Old.
orthopedic
Oh my
issues, my
god.
shoulder here, so I'll switch hands. Hopefully, you can still hear me. But
That's funny.
how do you feel about those things, Pulte, the Ukraine funding?
Yeah, I mean, I don't actually have that much to say about him because it's like I feel like it's same old, same old. It's like we know what he's doing. Like he's been trying to prosecute his enemies in one way or another for decades. Of course, he's put a bajillion guys who like aren't qualified in there. Hexo's not qualified, Kavanaugh's not qualified. He's done these things for what has it been 6 years now
Well,
between his two terms.
he would
Um,
have done the same thing in his first term, to a greater degree if he hadn't been stopped by some of the people in his own administration. But
yeah,
he doesn't have those breaks anymore. So
yeah. Well, and I think Democrats honestly were better at doing anything at all in his first administration too. I think right now they're just doing nothing, which is crazy. But like I say, it's crazy, but at the same time, it's like you think about and like I was talking about Talarico earlier. It's like you think about like rising stars in the Democratic Party, and it's like there are none. Like Zoran, sure, but like he can never run for president. And so it's like who else do you
well,
have?
right, and that's we talked about this last time, especially your age group. I mean, I hear
Cory
you.
Booker, please
Right,
save us. I'm
yeah,
joking.
well, I was like really high on Cory Booker in the last
He's like
couple election
gone
cycles, but yeah,
AWOL. Like
right,
where is
exactly.
he?
Well, I thought this guy was like going to be a superstar, but yeah, he's
He
kind
gave
of
one really long
pulled
speech, and that
back.
was it. One
Yeah.
really long filibuster, and that was it.
Well, hopefully,
That's all she wrote.
he gets some energy and decides to do something. But well, see, and this is something again, so from that I want to hear from you because what would you have the Democratic Party do or just any opposition do to deal with Trump? What strategy would you take? Because within the system, obviously, he's playing the system. He finds ways to cut the corners that are just this side of legal and
Yeah.
sometimes not, but you still can't do anything about it. So what would you do?
No, I
So
mean, I think that's a great
yeah,
question. I think
yeah.
it's a question, obviously, that many people oppose the Democratic Party and many people have complained about without offering solutions. But the point, I think, is just you gotta stop the guy any means necessary wherever you can. I mean, you look at the popularity that Newsom has gained by just shit posting, basically. Like
Right.
he hasn't even done that much in terms of like tangible things to combat Trump. Like obviously he's tried, but like honestly, his biggest impact has just been posting on social
Well,
media.
that's important.
Whoever he got hiring, yeah, whoever's on his
because
Twitter account is going crazy.
let us just clarify. By any means necessary doesn't mean violence. Okay, we're not advocating violence. Let's just make that clear.
Right,
By
right.
any legal means necessary, we should say. But no, you.
Well, I actually
yeah,
don't even quite mean legal
Well,
means necessary. I mean, and
yeah.
by that I'm not saying like blatantly like break the rules or anything like that. But Trump breaks the rules all the time. And it's not only that,
you
but
could say
they're
stretching the rules, right?
sure
but
bending the rules.
But we can
I mean,
rule out violence. So
yes.
we can agree on that. Okay, good. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think violence is the answer here. Especially not initiating it in any way, shape, or form. But that being said, like there are just a ton of like ways that Trump has bent rules until they've
Of
broken.
course. Yes.
Over the years, and it's not just Trump. Like it's a precedent. It's been a precedent for the Republican Party since we can argue the start. I know some say Reagan, some say Nixon.
Oh,
Before that, but one way or the other, like stuff like the Merrick Garland appointment, for example.
I know.
Like
right.
they had a minority, they stopped it. Like we should have been able to stop both of the appointments.
It was illegal though. That's the problem. They just found a hole in the rules that they crawled through, a loophole that.
It's one of those unspoken. It's like.
But a couple of things. So first of all, just because you mentioned Nixon, I mean Trump is basically Nixon without the brains. I'll give at least Nixon. Nixon had some brains. But they're both their idea of the presidency is that they should be able to be above the law and do whatever they want. I mean Nixon actually said that. He was called out on that. He said it on that David Frost interview. And Trump, that's his idea of the presidency too. Only his
shoot a man in New York City.
I know. Shoot a guy in Fifth Avenue, and they'll still vote for me. But he just believes that he said this in his first term. I'm the president. I can do whatever I want. Look it up. He said that countless times. I'm the president. I can do whatever I want. That's not the Constitution of the United States. Constitution does not say the president can do whatever he wants, and that's why back when he's had some scruples and Republicans had some scruples, they would not allow Nixon to do whatever he want. He broke the law. And the guy, they forced him to resign. But of course, they don't have these scruples now. So, but then the second thing, when you're talking about Newsom, now that is an important thing because winning, the public ears. I mean, that's how Trump got into the position he's in, right?
Yeah, totally.
He's gotten his message out to the public. He's created an image of himself. Now this is of long standing. It's hard to do this overnight, but he presented himself as some brilliant real estate mogul, despite the bankruptcies and all that, because of PR, right? That he did to make it, and
PR, aka The Apprentice,
and then The Apprentice, right? This TV show after he was basically gone, he'd failed in real estate, and he was like out. He was just shilling, doing cheap advertising and cameo roles in movies, right? But he got bailed out by The Apprentice, because for the sake of the show, the producers, right, they want to make him look like he's a great business mind. So they present him that way. And, he played the part, which he does. He's a con artist. He can put on an act. And he played the part. And, all these millions of Americans watching that, highly rated show, they believe that was the real guy. Right. And so he built that up. And through his messaging, look, the way he used Twitter and all that, he speaks to a large percentage of the population's language, insulting opponents, all that kind of stuff that seems to appeal to a lot of people. So he got their ear. And that's So Newsom doing that, countering that, dude, because I keep wondering when was somebody going to do this? Because to me, Trump's insults are like what you just said in third grade.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Joe Biden. Wow, that's so credit. Or, Hillary Clinton calls him a puppet in the 2016 presidential debates, and he says, "No, you're the puppet." Oh, what a brilliant comeback! So
I know.
scathing, right?
He didn't even know you.
Right. No, you're the puppet,
God
right?
damn.
I mean, it's like he's not very.
Got me.
He's not very clear. You can come up with epithets, names that are so much better.
I know.
And
no,
so-
I've seen people
so,
glazing of all people,
Yeah.
Hunter Biden lately. Have you seen that?
He's becoming popular.
Yeah, because
apparently,
he's gone on Twitter and he's just cracking dumbass jokes about
Exactly.
crack. It's
Yes.
literally like he just goes back to back with like that wasn't my crack. I never would have left it there. Like
Right.
you know, when they were talking about like
Yeah.
the cocaine in the White House.
Yeah.
But like no, I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah.
You know, I've always thought that it's really funny that he can get away with some of his insults because yeah, if I were like Hillary Clinton, he was calling me crooked Hillary, I'd be like, "Gee, is that the best?
As
you can
I
come up
know,
with?"
really,
Right.
really, you can't do better than how
But
long
I
did
feel
it
like
take you to think of that?
The
Huh?
best, like
Exactly.
they kind of
Yeah.
avoid, you know, confronting him on
Yeah.
any of those things because, and I honestly think, and I love Michelle Obama in general,
Hmm.
but I do think it's that like when
Classic,
they go
I
low, we
know.
go high,
What a
you know, and
mistake.
it's like no, man,
Yes.
sometimes they go low and you just have to step on them, like fuck.
Exactly. Well, that's something. That's another thing we can talk about is the whole redistricting thing and the Supreme
Yeah,
Court
and
decisions
all of
which are
that,
allowing
yes.
that. Because again, and it's the same thing with the Supreme Court appointment with the Merrick Garland thing, and
Yes.
you know
so
Mitch
that's
McConnell.
so that's what I mean.
It's,
when it
we,
comes-
we all take the high road, and that's why we're losing.
Exactly.
You know?
So that's what I mean when I say like, okay, I'm not discrediting Newsom for doing the social media stuff. I think it's
no,
it
no,
is-
that's what I'm saying.
yeah,
It's
it
good.
is really good
we
that he's
have to
doing that.
fight fire with
But-
fire.
But
Yes.
you know, like you can do so much more in terms of just the governmental apparatus to begin with. And I'm not like, I'm definitely no expert when it comes to like the powers of Congress and the legislature or anything like that, but I'm sure the Democrats could do more in legislature to filibuster, to do, just make things a pain in the ass for them.
But that's
strike down
but see,
executive orders
right,
left and right.
But this is what gets to, and it's the same. If we talk about the redistricting, it's that we have more scruples. The left has more scruples than the right does. And people say, well, you got to give
In other words, we're scared.
Right.
Like,
You say, you got to give Trump credit. He's pretty smart because he did X, Y, Z.
Yeah,
No,
I
he just didn't have any scruples. It's like, sure, a Democratic candidate could just race bait and win votes, but we have scruples. We're not going to do that, but he will. That's the difference, right? We're not going to shut down and threaten media people, reporters, and newspapers because we have scruples. Yeah, I mean, we could consolidate power when we had power that way too, right? Obama could have done that. He had a mandate when he got elected. He could have taken over, right, and shut down any media criticisms. He could have bulldozed the healthcare thing through, so we actually had a public healthcare plan instead of this compromise thing, which was better than what was before, but not as good as it should have been. I mean, but we have scruples, and that's the problem. I mean, we don't want to give up completely on our ethical, center, our moral values, etc. But you got to do more than we're doing, and that's why you can fight fire with fire in some ways, like the way Newsom is. Name calling, it lowers, the political debate, the quality of the political debate. But look, you just can't sit back and do nothing about that.
Well, if anything, I mean, we have learned time and time again that it's political theater now. It's
I know.
that
Yes,
you don't
exactly.
have political debates because they talk about the policy. It's like
Right.
nobody listens to that shit anymore. It's like, I mean, honestly, I don't think anyone ever did listen to that shit. Really.
Well, because look at the debate format. You can't talk complex economic, foreign policy, social.
30 seconds
in these
answer.
little 30-second answers. It's absolutely ridiculous. So it's
100%,
all
yeah.
about presentation. Yeah.
Yeah,
Continue.
exactly. No, and that's why
Yeah.
I mean that's why like Biden did really well in like those debates back in like what was it 2020
Right.
because he was doing the whole like get a load of this guy
I
like
know.
that shit was low-key hilarious.
Yeah.
I love watching Sleepy Joe cook, but that I think we just need to do more of that.
Yep. Well, and there are other ways too, like because look, protesting has its limits, right? But if you get millions of people across the country, if you can build that, organize it, really build it up, I mean, people on the fence see that, and it makes a difference to them. Yeah, you're not gonna get MAGA to say, oh, they're no King's March. Look at all these people. They're right and I'm wrong. There's no way they're gonna do that. But people on the fence, and those are the people you got to win, right?
Yeah,
You got to win people in the middle, independents, people who are changeable or winnable, right? And those numbers, those shows, that theater. If you got millions of people in the streets all over the country, that can make a difference, right?
Well, and frankly, those are the people that matter more. Not even like outside of the political game. Like obviously, everyone talks about like the middle follow the road
Yeah.
voter, but it's true that, as much as I like to talk about like progressive politics and stuff like that, like the median voter is like the average American person, and it's
Mm.
like if you're catering politics towards them, that's what representative democracy is
Well, sure,
about.
they should be
It's
represented
they are the
exactly.
ones that
The
really ultimately
the
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 policies
the
should be
middle
focused
is
on.
the majority,
Yeah.
and so you do have to acknowledge that, address it, and appeal to them. You got to give them something of what they want, at least, something. But anyway, but better if you give them more of what they want. But the thing
And
is,
what they want is killing
well,
immigrants.
that's the thing. You got to draw a line on something like immigration policy. I don't care how much a majority wants that. You can't demonize certain, ethnic groups or immigrants. It's
I mean, we've
absolutely
talked about
absurd.
this though, and
Yeah,
I think it's a
yeah,
really interesting point that like
yeah.
immigration is just the issue of the next century.
Yes.
It's like the Jim Crow of the of last of yesteryear, if
Yes.
you want to
Well,
put
unfortunately,
it
Jim
that way.
Crow, we're going back to that.
Well, I know, but that's my
Back to
point.
the
It's like
redistricting.
at one point slavery was
Yeah.
the issue. Now
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
immigration.
Yeah.
Slavery defined American
Yes.
politics
Yes.
for like 100 years.
Yes.
Now immigration will.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
immigration will be that issue for
Well,
probably the
yeah,
next
but
century,
yeah,
probably more.
yeah,
You
but
know, and
just
with climate change, it's only going to get worse,
right.
and it's not just in
Right.
America; it's
But just
everywhere.
as a historian, if you've studied things like, Nazi Germany, it's like demonizing minority groups for all of your problems. You see where that leads. That is just, we do not want to go down that path.
No,
It's just
but
not good. And so and yet, and you look at it on the economics of it, you look at the statistics on crime, immigration is good for our country. A study just came out
I mean, our
about
country are immigrants. Like,
yes,
it's just,
exactly. But we need the low skilled labor. We have to have it. Agriculture, service industry. There's so many places where we need that. And this study that just came out. I wish I can quote exactly who put it out. Finds how much it has cost the economy actually. Trump's immigration policy, because we do have a labor shortage in those core things like agriculture, and even if you were to replace those, which is not likely, with non-immigrant labor, would you be able to keep the wages as low as they are? And not like I'm in favor of low wages even for immigrant
I was
laborers,
gonna say,
but it's like,
yeah.
but even for those who are all up in arms about immigration, is that what you want? You want higher wages than going to farm laborers and so forth, and then your food costs are even higher than they already are. I mean, hey, you got to think this through. You can't, and look at the stats about crime. Are you going to blame them for all of the crime in the United States?
Yeah, the
Right?
stats show
I mean, it's
natural
ridiculous,
born
right?
are much more
They
likely to
commit,
commit crime
right?
than
Well,
immigrants are.
certainly immigrants don't commit crimes in any greater frequency than citizens do. So
Yeah.
it's just, these things are absurd. So you got to draw the
But
line somewhere.
again,
mean,
I do
yeah,
think that
yeah,
it's a more complicated issue because you think about what the right immigration policy is, and obviously we can both agree that like ICE is not the right immigration
well,
policy, especially not in its current form.
as it's currently
Yeah.
constituted, for sure.
Well, and I don't think
Yeah.
ICE, even in the Obama era was really legitimate. Like the thing is, even like Democratic presidents have always talked about having like the strong border to some degree to play toward the median voter. But I think the ironic thing is that they never end up actually prosecuting it.
Right.
For the longest time, even
Well,
like Bush and them, like
yeah.
they always talked about having a strong border and we're deporting immigrants. They deported way less than they could have because
yeah.
The two-tiered labor system. They needed farm workers.
But Bush Jr. was a traditional business Republican, and they know that we need that labor, and that's why he had proposed a sort of was thinking about a kind of a guest worker program, which they have in European countries and so forth. But that got shot down, because when race comes into it, I mean, again, the fact that we're taking in South African white refugees, right, fleeing persecution, I say that sarcastically, tells you all you need to know about the president's immigration policy. It's based on race. It's pretty clear. It has nothing to do with economics, has nothing to do with crime. It's racially based. And he uses that because that's a button you can press on people who don't know history, just knee-jerk responses to things. That'll get support from them.
I totally agree with you there. I think that a more interesting long-term question is about right immigration policy because you talk about the two-tiered labor system in terms of there are illegal immigrants who we have working for us because we need their labor, but we pay them under the minimum wage because they're illegal. And it's like I don't really know how you fix that problem in the long term because you can't, it's like if you like one of the, I'm in favor of improving the immigration courts significantly so that we actually, clear the
Well,
backlog.
that's the problem. Is
But
that they didn't
we,
fund it. There's
I know,
this huge backlog
we
of
intentionally
yeah,
keep the
asylum
backlog so that we
seekers.
can use the
Yeah,
illegal immigrants.
yeah,
Because if everyone
yeah,
could get
yeah.
in legally, then they would, and then
Right,
they would all have to be paid minimum
right,
wage, and then farmers would have to raise prices on food. And you again that goes
right.
back to the like, well, if you can't pay your workers a fair wage, you
That's
got to
right.
change your
Your
business
business model.
practices. But
And yeah.
man, that would suck for some parts of the
Sure,
U.S.
I understand. Well, that's why these things.
Economically.
That's why any of these kind of these major issues, these changes, and this is why I'm less far on the left as you are, Ty, in that because of what I've seen historically, both in my lifetime and what I study in history, is that you can't just change everything overnight
Yeah.
because all of these things have consequences and various sectors, groups, whatever, are going to be affected by it in different ways. So it has to be incremental. You can't just
See, but sometimes, and as much as you'd love to argue incremental like that, like, and it never gets done, it is, I think,
but it
more
doesn't
effective.
have to be that way though. It just, there's no reason why incremental can't keep pushing forward. Um, you know, it, I was going to
Well,
say,
yeah, there is, and it's because it's more and more uncomfortable, the more incremental you get, and as you progress along, like let's say you do it in stages, right? And it's like the first stage is we improve, immigration courts like slightly, right. We reduce the number of illegal immigrant farm workers, but we don't eliminate them, right? So there's still some, but we have more. Like the more you do that, the more you suffer like small economic consequences drawn out over a large period of time, instead of like. I feel like maybe the best plan is just to, you improve the backlog very quickly, right? Rapidly, reform immigration courts so that they're a lot more efficient. That basically eliminates the demand or the supply of, illegal farm workers because then everyone's getting, everyone who wants to come here in that regard is getting, work visas or stuff like that. But then you have to subsidize farms in the short term to make sure that they can reform their business.
Well, but this is the ridiculousness of Trump's policies. Both tariffs and his deportation policy of undocumented immigrants. A lot of them are farm laborers. This is really hurting the farm industry. So what does he do then? He tries to buy back the farmers' loyalty by subsidizing. It's like, well, you can just say we can do the kind of subsidizing you're talking about in a way that you're not demonizing immigrants and they're getting the labor they need. It's just his policy is just play it by ear. He does one knee-jerk thing. Oh, I'm just going to deport them all. Then he realizes, oh, it's causing all these problems. Oh, okay, so then I'll subsidize. I'll just give the farmers money, and then that'll keep them happy. And then it's like, and the same thing with the tariffs. It's like, oh, now who's going to buy our soybeans or whatever. I mean, it's like
it's like blowing your leg off with a shotgun and then giving you a prosthetic once you realize you can't walk.
But this is the classic Trump thing. He breaks something. And then he fixes it and touts how
he's the great
how
repairer.
He's fixed it, like just like with the Iran war.
I always fix it.
Yes,
I always fix it.
I alone can fix it. But it's like
you break it, we fix it.
Right. I alone can fix it. But it's the same thing with Iran, right?
Yeah.
I
know.
We already had a deal that had lasted for what?
Bomb this shit out of them. Now they say they won't make nuclear weapons. Bang.
Right. Well, we already had a deal where they said they weren't going to make nuclear weapons, and that held for 15 years before this stupid war. And what is he going to get at the end of it? At best, a guarantee from them that they're not going to make weapons. There's nothing has changed except you destabilized everything. It potentially had a much greater conflict, and it's not over yet. We don't know. So it's very frustrating. This is kind of how he operates.
Well, it's funny in like in the 24-hour news cycle, not to use buzzwords, but in the news cycle, like things that he did like just a few months ago already get lost. Like we've like low-key forgotten about Venezuela. What do you do there? Like the same shit. He just like randomly goes in there, bombs the shit out of them, steals their president for no reason, and then tries to go get their get oil companies in there to make a turn an American profit. They're like, nah, it's kind of expensive to do that. And then he's just like, oh, okay. And now it's just like,
well, he has he doesn't plan, he doesn't strategize. Like far ahead, I won't say he doesn't strategize. He's got a basic strategy, like we said. There's certain way he operates, but he doesn't like think about consequences and long term, like how things work with things like foreign policy. Because this is what he does, though. Because both by nature and the way things work, he has this incredibly short attention span. And there's every day, if you notice this, every day there's at least 3 new major initiatives that he's starting, whether it be some building a new arch, or attacking another country, or slapping another tariff on somebody, or doing some, there's always some, like at least 3 brand new huge initiatives every day. Most of them nothing get done on, others get hung up in the courts, others get, but it's just this nonstop, because that is his nature. He can't stop. That's why I often say to MAGA people, or even people around MAGA, but Republicans or moderates who say, hey, cut Trump some slack or whatever, and I say to them, look, even if he got everything he wanted right now, like we deported every single undocumented, immigrant, if Iran capitulated 100%, if Cuba if we got Greenland, if Canada became the 50%, even if we got every single thing he says, do you think he'd stop there? Do you think he'd be satisfied? Never. The guy will never stop. It is not his nature. And he is a narcissist. He has to be the center of attention. He has to be the greatest person who ever lived in the world and be acknowledged for that. So he's going to keep doing more and more stuff. If he gets Greenland, what's going to be next? It's going to be Canada. If he gets Canada, what's going to be next? Well, it's going to be Russia. Russia. I don't know.
Invade Antarctica.
This is the way it works with guys like that. And some of the guys from history who were like that too, who couldn't stop. Hey, they gave him the Sudetenland. Hey, they gave him Austria. Hey, they gave us, like, they're always, there always had to be more.
That's the second Nazi
never
Germany
stopped.
This,
I didn't say anything.
Wait, this is the second one.
I didn't.
Who invaded the Sudetenland?
Yeah. No, it was given to them, basically.
Well, I know, yes.
But... Because, again, they just ratchet up the pressure, threats of warfare. Gee, does that sound familiar?
Yes,
right?
Yes,
and you do it for security. And
the old appeasement story.
And yet then there's the next border, right? And then there's the next border. And there's always another security threat. Hey, if we don't take over Greenland, then China or Russia will. Oh, okay. So, well, isn't that going to be the case with Canada? Isn't that going to be the case with North Korea? Isn't that going to be the case? Taiwan? Should we take over all these places so that nobody else can? When does it stop? It never does with guys like that. Never. But I don't know where we are on our time, because I wasn't keeping track. Where are we? Do you know?
You were? I have no idea.
Well, let's do a quick thing on the.
I actually know vaguely. So
the court cases and then the NBA. So I want to say something about the redistricting, because these unbelievable Supreme Court decisions gutting the Voting Rights Act. Going back to 2013. Was it Shelby County? Versus. Eric Holder was Attorney General at the time, which basically took out the pre-clearance part of the Voting Rights Act, because these, states that had a long record of voter suppression based on race, right, not allowing blacks to vote, basically making it almost impossible for them to vote in these southern states, that they had to get pre-clearance if they're going to make any voting law changes to make sure they couldn't do any more repressive things. Well, that was gutted in 2013, thanks to John Roberts. Who said there was no more racism, that these are outdated. The Voting Rights Act is outdated, and
there's
of course
just no more racism.
Yeah, of course, immediately you get
Okay.
voter suppression laws, right? And now with this latest one, this Louisiana versus Calais, they're basically saying that you can't stop redistricting on the basis of saying that it's racist, because the bar for that is so high. You have to prove intent. It used to be you just had to show like the obvious effects of it, right? That tens of thousands of black people would no longer would be in a minority district where they'd have no voting power whatsoever, things like that. But you can't use that anymore. You have to show intent. Well, how do you show that unless you have some smoking gun, like taped, conversation saying we're going to do this for racist reasons? So that basically destroyed that part of the Voting Rights Act too. So that's what's allowing all these southern states now to basically redistrict on the basis of race. And because they know that, right, black voters predominantly vote Democratic, so they're going to basically nullify their votes by putting them, as a small minorities in various districts. And the thing is, all these southern states can easily do that, because unlike a lot of the blue states like California or New York, where we made constitutional amendments to have a nonpartisan redistricting commission, right? Because we were good actors, wanted to do the right thing. It's much harder for the blue states to just go ahead and redistrict like that. See, like in Texas, when they redistricted, it was just their legislator, just their state legislators, just okay, we're changing the district. Even though non-census year, they just went ahead and did it. We in California had to take it to the voters with this this initiative, right, Prop 50, to get that done. It cost a ton of money. It was in some doubt whether it would pass or not. And that's why New York to change their district is really difficult, because the time to change their constitution and all this. Whereas the southern states, they could just do it. And so, again, you talk about the Supreme Court redistricting, you talk about who has scruples and who doesn't. Because the blue states had scruples and wanted to do the right thing and have nonpartisan commissions and write that into their constitution, now we're at a disadvantage in this partisan battle against red states that have no such constitutional laws, and they just redistrict like that. And the Supreme Court has enabled them to do that, by gutting the Voting Rights Act. It's horrible. I can't believe this is happening in this country. I mean, I lived through, I was born in the 60s and saw the civil rights era, and what a great thing. And we're all like proud of being Americans. And look where we are now. What say you?
I mean, there's a new outrageous thing every day. I don't think it's worth getting, outraged or overanalyzing every single, ridiculous decision, that's made by the administration. It's just, it is what it is. Unfortunately.
But see, and this is the problem, is when the Constitution is not working like it should, where you have checks and balances, right? When the Supreme Court enables all of these Trump things, because he was calling for these states to redistrict, before California, right? He started it with Texas because he knew he was going to lose the House because he's incredibly unpopular, right? But he's not being checked by the Supreme Court. The legislature, which is, the House and the Senate as of now, are controlled by Republicans, so they're not checking.
And like we said before, Democrats aren't doing anything. Right. I mean, that, but that's a given. That's part of the, that's what we've been seeing. I don't think there's anything different here. It's like same old.
Well, but let me get that. That reminds me of something I was going to say earlier about when you're talking about. I was talking about incrementally. It's like the pot of boiling water with the frog, right? Because if you do it incrementally, then it's less noticed, right? That you're doing something that, is going to cause a little bit of, inconvenience, pain, but in the long run will be better for everybody. Whereas if you do it like all of a sudden, right? And that's the thing about Trump and where he is right now.
I was going to say, this is the opposite. It's not going to be better for everyone in the long run. It's worse
well, with what Trump's doing, because we've got the pot of boiling water, sort of in reverse here, where he's taking on all this massive power, concentrating in the hands of the executive branch. Well, just him basically in his one person, right? It's Louis XIV, l'état c'est moi, right? The state is me. I'm the state. Yeah. That's basically his view of the United States, that it's him, right? And so, and it's slowly but surely, right? And so people, when I tell people, we're like basically becoming a dictator. So it's like, no, that's ridiculous. Our institutions are too. It's like when it's happening incrementally, being chipped away with every new thing that Trump does, before people know it, there we are. Yeah, we're a dictatorship, basically. Some could even argue that it is now. But okay, so you don't want to say anything else about Supreme Court redistricting?
Trump does what he does. We know it's heading toward a dictatorship. We know this is his playbook. Like, I think, the stuff that he's doing, it's like, it's non-unique. Every now and then he steps over the line. He goes a little further than an increment. People get outraged. And then he keeps
Then he pulls back, but he never gives up. And then he'll find another path. Exactly.
And the reason like he's been on about this for 6 years, and I get it,
because I'm a historian. We've seen it before.
But let's talk about the NBA.
Okay, so let's get the NBA as we wrap this up. So, what do you think of the NBA Finals, Di?
Yeah, I think it's great. I think my mayor's Muslim, my bagel's Jewish, my Christians are Dior, Dixon 4. Something like that.
Is that the same?
That's the viral line right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Dixon 4. Baby.
But did you pick the Knicks at the outset though?
I thought that the Spurs were gonna win. I wanted the Knicks to win. Yeah. I prefer the Knicks over the Spurs. I don't like the Spurs for some reason. I really like the
Well,
Spurs.
I don't dislike him, but I was picking the
I've
Spurs.
always thought
Yeah.
Wemby was overhyped. I'm gonna be so honest. I've always thought he's overhyped.
He's not. Look,
He's generational, but I just
yeah.
don't like how much hype he gets.
Well, because
People glaze the
yeah.
living shit out of
Yeah.
that guy.
but you can see his potential. Like if he can stay healthy, and he can
Yeah, like he's 7'4", like we get it. Like he has guard package, like
Right,
whatever.
Right, but the guy has got look, because I remember Kareem back in the day, and it was just amazing that a guy at his height could be that athletic and that agile, and yet here you've got a guy even taller, who's just as athletic, but also can shoot threes, right? Can handle the ball. Kareem had the unstoppable sky hook, but he couldn't shoot threes, and he couldn't handle the ball, right? And so and I think the Wemby's got the attitude too. He's got the competitive.
Well,
spirit.
not tonight.
Yeah, no, he's trying. It's
Not
just no,
tonight.
he's just getting worn down, and that's what I mean. He's got to get stronger. One hopes he'll do that in the future. But anyway,
I don't think so. I think it was a mentality thing tonight. Tonight was game 2 of the finals, right? And was it this game or it was in game 1 where he another crunch time situation coming down to the wire. There was maybe 50 seconds left on the clock. I think Spurs were down by 4, I want to say, maybe by 2 only. And Wemby, crucial attack, he needs to score on this possession to really keep them in the game. Dribbles it off his foot.
Yeah.
Joshua gets it,
this,
and that's when Brunson hit that ridiculous like floater thing in the guy's face. Like,
but
whatever.
This is where he isn't like Kareem level yet, right?
Yeah.
In that with Kareem, you knew he could get position in the low post.
Yeah.
You could feed it to him, and he was going to hit that sky hook. It was unstoppable, and he shot an incredibly high percentage on it. And that's the thing that Wemby can't do yet. Look, the last shot he took tonight was this elbow,
jumper. Okay, but he was open. Like
I know, but it's like that's not the guaranteed shot to win the game that you want. I mean, I it's 50-50. He might hit it, he might not. But I want that guy dunking it to win the game. Seriously.
Yeah.
He's got to get down there and he's got to dunk it. But the thing is, against Cat, he's just getting pushed around. Cat's just a lot stronger than he is. And that's why Wemby's just got to get stronger. I mean, I don't want to see him as a perimeter player. Yeah, the occasional 3 or whatever, but he's got to be more effective down low through an entire game against strong competition. And not just a game. We're talking the playoffs. It's got to be a whole series, right?
Well, and we talked about it a little bit when it came to Spurs versus OKC, which I'm surprised the Spurs won, frankly. Because we were talking about like having the ISO score. It's like you give it to this guy in the clutch, he's gonna score. Obviously, SGA is that guy, right? Honestly, the Thunder when they're healthy have like 2 of them. I think Jada's also kind of a really good isolation score like that. But Wemby isn't really like
no, he's
obviously
not.
he's like A tier isolation scorer, but he's not like S tier.
Right.
Brunson is a better clutch time isolation scorer. I agree. And it's showing.
I agree, and that's why I don't want Wemby getting the ball at the top of the key or at the elbow.
When there's 50 seconds left.
Right, I want him down low to get, because he should be dunking it. That is the guaranteed go-to thing if he can get down there, right?
True.
And that's what he hasn't been doing.
But to be able to, get him the ball down there, you need a good guard. And De'Aaron Fox has been playing like.
Well, he had a better game tonight. But yeah, he
did have a better game tonight.
Kind
but
of absent.
In general, he's been like geriatric out there. I don't know. I mean, obviously he's like had injuries, but it's not just injuries. He just is playing stupid. Like
I know he has turnovers. Not exactly. But again, back to, so I thought the Spurs won mainly because I thought the OKC, Spurs series, that they were the 2 best teams. They're fighting it out. They had this hard-fought series, and whoever came through that I thought would win was the Knicks. I think have a lot of talent, especially if they're starting 5.
Yeah.
And just a good team makeup. That you got Brunson, the go-to scorer guy. You got Cat, who can score, play D when he's motivated, which he is now. And you got roll
shockingly
Anunoby, who's like just solid all around.
Solid.
And then you got Hart, who's like your hustle, make the plays, get some rebounds, play D, whatever, transition. So you got a really good.
He didn't score tonight.
Yeah, I know he didn't. Yeah, but foul trouble too. But then you got Bridges, who's good on the break, who can hit the 3. He's inconsistent, but he can be big too. So they got a lot.
He looks like a cartoon character.
Yeah, he does look like a cartoon character to me. But so they got the talent. I think across the board, the Knicks had more talent. But because of their past performances, in playoffs or even not even getting there sometimes. I just didn't think they had the mentality to be able to go against the Spurs, beating OKC, right, in this hard fought series. And yet we're seeing the opposite. They're playing smart. They're playing up to their talent. And it's the Spurs really who aren't playing as smart
Yeah,
and who are kind of
totally.
wilting. I mean, I guess Wemby's not
I mean, they're young. To be
taking the
fair,
pound. Yes,
they're a really
but
young team.
Fox is an experienced guy. But and
That's
I
true.
know his ankle. He's injured. But come on, this is. I mean, Willis Reed of the Knicks, right? It's crunch time. You just gotta do it,
Yeah, you gotta
or you
do it.
lose.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. So,
But that's the interesting thing about the Knicks. I mean, you talk about them being, like not super consistent team all the time, and their previous playoff performances have been like, hit or miss. They got to the Western Conference Final, not last year, or Eastern Conference Final, not last year, but 2 years ago.
I think it was recently.
I
But
think so, and they lost to
yeah,
the Celtics or
right,
something.
yeah.
Like, and they just, it's like, I mean, in the first round against the Hawks, they
Yeah.
looked terrible.
Yeah,
And CJ
I know.
McCollum was lighting them up for 30 points a game.
Right.
Like,
All right, so just to wrap up the NBA Finals, so are you picking the Knicks to sweep? Or are you picking just to win?
yeah, for the meme, I gotta say Knicks in 4. Realistically, I think San Antonio will probably win one more game, so I think it'll be Knicks in 5. But we'll say Knicks in 4 for the meme.
See, I'm not sure. The way things. I mean, look, these games. It's not like the Knicks are blowing them out. These games are close, right? So I think. I mean, I do think it looks like the Knicks are going to win the series. Whether they'll sweep or not, I'm not sure. I think maybe the Spurs might be able to pull one out because maybe the Knicks will go back to their old ways and kind of let up in one of these games on their home court. But yeah, I guess I got to go with the Knicks to win the thing. That may be obvious at this point, but
Yep.
we'll see. We'll never know. Okay. All right. Well,
All right.
that's it for this week. We'll be back next week with more of the same kind of stuff, politics, maybe some sports, follow up on the NBA Finals, maybe something else. We'll see. All right. So long for now. Bye.
Yep. Later.